was 17, so what happened was I finished my GCSEs and then I went to college, Redcar Technical College they called it, to do performing arts. And first big show they did in the first year, I got cast as Jesus in Godspell. And then 2 weeks before we opened, I got glandular fever and couldn't do the show. I was so ill with glandular fever, so I couldn't do the show. And obviously I was really upset that I couldn't play Jesus, and I was not well. Do you know what I mean? There was no way. And my mum came into my room and she had a copy of the stage newspaper and she went, okay, so me and your stepfather have talked about it, and because you've not been able to do Jesus, we thought, why don't you go and audition for drama school in London just to see? You won't get in, and you're only 17 and you're too young, so it's just a little practice for next year. So I applied to Mount View, went for the audition, then got recalled, and then got in.
Hi Envisionaires, it's Nicole Ning-Yuan here. Welcome to the Envisionaire podcast. This is the podcast where we envision living our best lives by exploring everyday topics related to health, wealth, and community. On today's episode, we have Tim McArthur, who is a renowned actor, director, presenter, and playwright. Tim has been working in the entertainment industry for the last 25 years, participating as an actor in pantos and the theater, on TV and radio programs, and cabarets, where his acclaimed alter ego, Sister Mary, was born. He has also written and produced and directed countless creative projects in London's entertainment industry. I had the opportunity to meet Tim recently when I went to the theater to watch his production of Deeper and Deeper, a story that Tim wrote, produced, and directed of 5 gay men who randomly came to live in a flat share in London in the late 1990s. This play made me laugh so much. And it also made me reflect on the evolution of the characters and the socioeconomic issues they would have faced during that time period. I enjoyed the play so much, but I have to say there was an added bonus that I did not expect to experience, which was actually being able to talk to the cast as well as Tim himself afterwards at an informal drinks hour following the play. It was such a pleasure to meet him and to talk to him about his creative process in writing this play and other plays that he has in the pipeline, that I just thought I had to have him on to share with you guys, the Envisionaires, his incredible story and experiences working in London's entertainment industry. And I also really wanted to talk with him about his creative process and the genius that's behind writing all these plays. And so I'm so grateful that he graciously accepted the invitation. And so we have a very, very warm welcome to Tim for joining the Envisionaire podcast. So welcome, Tim.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It sounds like when you say all those things, I'm like, who is she talking about? Who is that?
I feel the same way when people, no, I'm just joking. You are like, this is like next level.
Like, who is that? Who's talking about? Is it me? Oh, it's me, little me.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, it's a joy to be here. So, and you were a joy. I have to say, you were a joy after the show, and you're so warmth, and you're fabulous. You're fabulous.
Oh, you are fabulous.
You
okay,
are fabulous.
You are.
We're all fabulous.
Okay. Oh gosh, Tim, thank you. Well, thank you so much. Right. Well, I love to hear people's stories and so on. And I actually was reading, because you are such an acclaimed person, I've actually been reading articles about you, and there is so much to read about Tim. And I was reading an article that featured you when you shared your experience with a theater as a 7-year-old child. And you were at a Cinderella pantomime, and you shouted out loud to the character, "Don't eat that, it's got poison in it."
Yeah.
And you mentioned that this is the first time that you experienced projecting your voice into a theater.
Yeah.
So the question I have is, was that the first time you remember like falling in love with a theater?
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I think randomly we sort of went to the theatre. My brother actually was wanted to be an actor. My brother's 8 years older than me, and so he wanted to be an actor. So we started going to see the theatre a lot more through probably his influence and what he wanted to do. Later on in his life when he left school, and yeah, that was probably the first memory I have of seeing, and I remember like everyone shouting, and then obviously me just shouting and shouting and shouting, and everyone else going quiet, and just my voice echoing around, booming around the theatre. But the other theatre memory I have is I think I must have been about 6 or 7. It was like 1981 or 1982, and there was a musical called Barnum at the London Palladium, and it starred Michael Crawford, who was a very famous actor in Some Mothers Do Have 'Em. And basically, I remember going to see Barnum at the Palladium, and there was a clown on the steps, and he made the balloons when they make they blow the balloons up, and then they mold them into animals, and he molded it into a giraffe. And that was one of the first memories I have of going to the theatre. So Barnum, the musical Barnum, written by Cy Coleman, has always been probably my first musical experience, really. But it wasn't until much later in my life because I actually wanted to be a bus driver.
Did you? What was it about the buses that attracted you?
I don't know. And I was obsessed with buses. I still have buses in my
Do
flat now,
you?
little Coldly toy buses, yeah, on my bookcase and everything,
Aw.
yeah. And I just, yeah, I don't know what it was. And then because we went to the theatre, obviously, and then my best friend, Glenn, there was an advert in the Evening Gazette, the local paper up north where I'm from, a little place called Gisborough. And she said, "Oh, you like theatre? They're auditioning for Oliver. Why don't you go and audition?" And we all went one Sunday, and that was it. And then I just got the bug. And then it was bye bye buses, hello theatre.
And how old were you again? Sorry, Tim.
I think I was 12.
Oh,
And
12.
then,
Gosh.
yeah, and then it was a case of I joined like the local amateur societies, so I would do a show every 6 or 7 weeks, really. And that's where my
Wow.
heart was. I look back and I think, oh, maybe I should have concentrated a little bit more on my schoolwork. But I
I think
don't,
you
I
did
don't
well.
think,
No, I think,
yeah, I
no.
don't think you need maths to do, apart from doing budgets for shows. You know what I mean? But apart from that,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
great.
exactly. I mean, so I have like no experience. So a lot of the questions I have are just probably very like, how does it work and how do you do it? But I think getting back
Yeah.
to when you joined the amateur theater, did that take up a lot of time when you were, a teenager?
Yeah, I mean the other thing, of course, when you enter the profession, rehearsal times, you can rehearse a show in 2 or 3 weeks. But when it's an amateur show, you'll rehearse it for 4 months. And you
Wow.
might do weekends, Saturday mornings or Sunday afternoons, or maybe 2 nights a week for like two and a
Hmm.
half hours or something. So you don't see because it's so spread out. You've got time to do it because people have jobs and everything. Where yeah, it was you had much longer to rehearse a show than you do
Hmm.
nowadays.
Wow. And then, so you said that you grew up in a smaller town in the north, and when did you move to London? Was it at when you were around like a young adult?
Yeah, I was 17. So what happened was I finished my GCSEs and then I went to college, Redcar Technical College, they called it, to do
Okay.
performing arts. And
Oh wow.
the first like big show they did in the first year, I got cast as Jesus in Godspell.
Wow.
I know. And then 2 weeks before we opened, I got glandular fever
Oh
and
no.
couldn't do the show. I was so ill with glandular fever, so I couldn't do the show. And
Oh.
obviously, I was really upset that I couldn't play Jesus, and I was not well. Do you know what I mean? There was no way. And my
No.
mum came into my room, and she had a copy of the stage newspaper, and she went, "Okay, so me and your stepfather have talked about it, and because you've not been able to do Jesus, we thought, why don't you go and audition for drama school in London just to see? You won't get in, and you're only 17 and you're too young, so it's just a little practice for next year." So I applied to Mount View, went for the audition, then got recalled, and then got in.
Wow. Oh
So I
my
moved to London when
gosh.
I was 17. So I didn't finish my course. I only did one
Oh
year
my
of the 2 year
gosh.
course, and then I was
It was
at I was at Mount View.
so it was all kind of almost serendipitous in a
Yeah,
way.
it was. Yeah, yeah. Because I
I mean,
think if I
because,
hadn't got glandular fever,
yeah.
I wouldn't have gone. I wouldn't have gone to audition. I would have waited another year, to go and audition for
Wow.
drama schools.
Wow, that is because I really do believe like one of the things that I've learned probably I'm in my 30s now, and I'm actually doing an episode on like the things I wish I had known in my 20s, and one of the
Yeah,
things
yeah.
is everything happens for a reason, and this is
I
a prime
completely agree with
example
you.
of that,
Yeah,
right?
completely agree with you.
Yeah,
Um,
so
yeah, and
fascinating.
it's sort of it was a painful thing that happened because I was upset I couldn't do it, but then result of that it then changed my life having glandular fever because I was one minute I was there and the next minute I was saying bye everyone, I'm moving to London. Fascinating. And I moved down in the June, the end of June, and I didn't start Maltby until the October. And my brother was moving out of a flat he was living in, so he spoke to the landlord. So me and two people moved into his flat. So it all sort of worked out really well. And I had 3 months of working front of house on Phantom of the Opera um, before I started college. And meeting people as well because I was just coming down to London, not knowing anyone, you know. And it was, scary. I was 17. I was such a young, sweet thing, full of
Oh.
hopes and dreams, before the bitterness and the jadedness set in.
I don't see that. You're not bitter
No,
in any
no,
way.
no. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think no matter what you do in life, and I always learn from experiences in every job I do, in whatever field it is, there's always something that you learn from, and you always go, oh, I learned that, and then you can take stuff you learn into other areas of your life. Sometimes good things, sometimes bad things. We're all human, but it's really. I think I'm not religious or anything like that, but I am very spiritual in you know certain things in my life. I always treat people how I would like to be treated. Um, it's little things like when I direct a show and I audition the actors, I will now email all the no's to tell them it's a no because I knew as an actor, you spend so many times going for an audition and then you don't hear anything. Um, and it's just nice to let people know. And then sometimes people might audition for me and they might not be right, but I might be doing something else. And I'll say to them in the audition, you're not right for this. However, I'm doing something later on the year that you are right for, and I'll be in touch with your agent. I think that's much a healthier attitude because then that person doesn't go away stressing and thinking, did I get the job? Did I not get the job? I think it's good to have clarity and treat people properly with respect.
Oh, 100% agree. I mean, and I'm also very, very spiritual. And so that whole idea of like the universe and things happening in kind of your karmic energy, like you're putting things out and it comes back. So I 100% agree. And that's so nice. Like you're like a human, a heart centered human.
Oh, bless you.
Like,
Yeah, I think it's
right?
important.
You lead with your heart.
Yeah, yeah. And, obviously, show business, it's a business. It's called show
Mm,
business. But within that, I think there are elements of how you can actually be respectful to each other. And at the end of the day, I want to work with nice people. I want to be in a room with nice people. The
mm-hmm,
only ego in the room is the show. The rest of
mm,
us, we're all from the cast, the actors to the creative team. We are all, we're all, they can get rid of us. It's not a
yes.
show. The show is the ego, and I think that's
Mm,
something to really remember when you are in the entertainment industry.
I like that. Thank you, Tim. That's really good advice. And so obviously talking about show business, it's notoriously difficult to break through, and so obviously your story was that in some ways it was serendipitous or a synchronicity of it all, and that started you in a part of your career. That first show that you landed in London. How I guess what would you say? Like, how have you broken into all the other areas of the industry that you have broken into? Was it kind of just being in the right time at the right place, all these synchronicities, or were you creating these opportunities yourself?
It was all of it's been completely by accident.
Really?
Yeah,
Tell us,
it's
tell us.
when I left drama school, I worked constantly for the first 2.5 years. Like I was doing 4-week contracts, then 8-week contracts. I was all over the country doing shows in rep theatres that don't really exist much these days. And then in 1997, for whatever reason, I didn't work. And there was like 2 jobs that I got cast in, both got cancelled. And then one was just not very good, so everybody resigned.
Oh, I
And
didn't
then
know
I
that
was
could
like,
happen.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It didn't happen. And
Okay.
I was just like, I'm not going to work. What am I going to do? And I thought, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll put a little show together. I'll sing 10 songs for an hour, bit of chat, all different styles, like Gershwin, your contemporary musical theatre, your classics. And I did a little show, a one-man show called Time After Time at the Canal Cafe Theatre in Little Venice. And we did a couple of nights and it sold out. And then the guys who ran the theatre said, would you come back in October and do a month? So we did a month's run of me singing songs from the shows on my own. And that's how I got into cabaret. Never wanted to do my own person shows, but I did it to try and get people to come and see me that would cast me in casting directors. So then that all snowballed. And then my cabaret career took off, and I've done, I've done 54 Below in New York. I've done seasons in Chicago. I've done, seasons in Kuala Lumpur, Cape Town. And then I got asked to do the Purcell Room on the South Bank one Christmas as a Christmas show. And I was like, oh, I need something funny at the top of Act Two. What can I do at the top of Act Two? And I was hungover one Sunday afternoon, comfort eating on curly whirlies, and The Sound of Music was on. And I thought, I know, I'll come out dressed as a nun and I'll do Do Re Mi and get the audience to do Do Re Mi. And then the actor in me went, no. You can't just come on stage dressed as a nun. You need a reason you are dressed as a nun. Who is this nun? And then I was like, she's called Sister Mary. She's from St. Peter's of the Sisters of the Third, who moved in Soho in the heart of London's West End. She was found on the steps, wrapped up in a copy of the stage newspaper. And a short note which read, this has fallen out of Elaine Page. Please look after it for Elaine Page. Kiss, kiss, kiss Elaine Page. So obviously she thinks her mum is Elaine Page, hence why she gets this showbiz desire. And then Sister Mary was born. And then a friend of mine was in the audience, and Penny Horner, she runs the German Street Theatre. And afterwards in the bar, she said to me, there's something in that character. I'm going to give you my theatre for a week next year, and you can develop and do like an hour and a half show of Sister Mary. And
Wow.
that's how that all took off.
Oh
So
my gosh.
yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah. And then presenting wise, I was programming an arts festival at a venue that I did cabaret, that I produced cabaret at. And the guys who run the venue, Lauderdale House, said, we want to do an arts festival for 3 weeks. Do you fancy programming it? I went, yeah, I've never programmed before. I can book different comedy acts and cabaret acts and stuff. And I went to a radio station to promote the season and got interviewed by this guy, came off air, and the station manager came up to me and said, Tim, you've got a great voice for the radio. And I went, and face. And said, would you be interested in
No,
doing,
no, the opposite.
yeah,
Oh my God.
he said, would you be interested in doing a Saturday afternoon show from 2 till 6 on the station? And it was like a pop music station. And I went, yeah, all right. And that's how I got into presenting. So none of it has ever
Wow.
been planned. Do you know what I mean? It's just been a
No.
case of yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And directing, never wanted to be a director. And I was cast in a new musical workshop, and 3 days in, the director got a bigger job and left the project. And the composer had seen me do my one-man show, which is why I got the gig.
Wow.
And I'd been directing like other people's cabaret shows, and he went to me, "Oh, you do a bit of directing?" And I went, "Yeah, but not like full-scale musicals." And he went, "Well, I want you to direct it now." And then I
Wow.
went, "Okay." And then about 8 months later, he got funding to do the show in a theatre, and he got me to direct it. And then that's how I started getting into directing. So it's all been I've fallen into everything by chance. Jack of all trades, master of none, I think the expression goes.
Well, I'll have to say, so like I've been kind of clocking different things as you've been speaking, and I have to say, like, there's like the recipe for success, if I could summarize, it seems like you say yes to things. You're not like, you say yes, you start like if you're starting, you said that you were like taking contracts, like small contracts everywhere and like going up, all across the country, right? So nothing was like too, no, I'm not like too big for that or anything, right? And then obviously hard work, because like that is very taxing. And it seems like you're also entrepreneurial a little bit, because obviously you are, even as an actor, like you were, and when you wrote your first play, that kind of one-man show play, you were time after time, you said that you invited, like intentionally invited, certain people. And I think good for you. Like that's so I'm actually seeing a very nice like little recipe for success. Even though I'm sure there was like some, good fortune in that as well. But I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah, and I think, I think it's that case of like, I just remember thinking I don't want to be someone who sits and waits for the phone to ring, because the business is so hard, and a lot of people do. They just, sit and wait for the phone to ring, and actually, I think it's a lot more accepted now that people do create their own work. But 20 years ago, it was sort of, I did get quite a lot of negativity about it, which was quite interesting. But now it's changed. I think it's so important that, performers do create their own work, and especially when you're just leaving drama school, like just do something that is you. That we are all of us, we all have something unique to offer. Like I can't do what you do, you can't do what you do. You know what I mean? It's like we all have something that someone will go, I like that. I want a bit of that. So I think it's really important that you remember that as a performer. And because you waste, I remember I was talking to some friends about it the other week actually, and we were all saying how much time we wasted worrying why we weren't getting things and other people were getting things. And actually, if we use that time and energy for us to just accept, that's fine. I'm not going to get cast like that. I'm not that part. That's not me. I think people think they can do everything, and sometimes you can't play every part. You're not right for everything. And I think that again, where it comes into treating it much more as show business. It's a business. And I think the minute you can try attach yourself emotionally and personally, because you are a product, I'm a product, and that's me not being harsh, but I think it takes a long time for performers and creatives to actually realize that. It's taken me a long time, and now I'm like, yeah, if I'm not right, I'm not right. There's nothing I can do. I can't change someone's mind. If they don't want to hire me, they don't want to hire me. That's fine.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's part of it is, well, the comparison game is a very difficult one, and
Yeah,
it's something that
completely.
I'm like very interested in to understand like how we can get over that, because it's quite natural. I mean, even in my industry, like as a podcaster, it's, you do see some podcasters having a lot more success, and you think, oh, like, why am I not there yet? But it's like,
Mm,
I think it's a culmination of different gifts and different skill sets, and also knowing that, like, accepting that you're not always going to resonate with every single
yeah,
person, and in fact
yeah.
that's okay, that's good almost in a
And it's
way,
good.
because
And it's the same
yeah,
with friendships. You can't make, you can't, not everyone will like you. You can't,
yes,
and I also spent, I think, a lot of my younger years trying to make people like me who didn't like
yes, that's
me.
what I mean.
And no matter what you do, they ain't gonna like you if they don't like you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and
It's
almost,
just life. It's being human. It's human nature.
yeah,
Can't all like each other.
yes, and the more you try,
It makes it
the
worse.
more they don't like you.
I know. I know. I know.
I've had
I know.
that so
It's
many
like a
times.
wheel within a
Yeah, totally.
wheel.
Right. Okay. So let's get into a bit of your creative process. So can you tell us a little bit about what happens with each new creative project? And let's talk about, let's say, well, playwriting, because that's one of the topics of the day.
So playwriting again, I fell into completely by chance. Um, there's the Lauderdale House, which was the venue that I was programming the arts festival for. Catherine Ives, who's the director of the house, wanted to do a new season of LGBTQ plus plays, and I every Halloween I write a children's show for them, which is 500 children come to, there's 25 actors, and it goes all around the park, and it's like a Halloween spooky story. And I've been doing that for like 15 years for her. And she just said to me, why didn't you write a play? And I went, oh, I've never written a play before. She went, but you've been writing Halloween for kids, so write a play, write a gay play. So my first play was called Control, and it was about a relationship between a younger gay man and an older gay man, and how he manipulated the relationship. And it was a really, really dark piece of theatre. I didn't intend it to be dark, but it was sort of quite dark, and there's only 5 actors in it. And that was my first play, and I really enjoyed it. And we managed to get it on in 2 different theatres. It went on a little tour. And writing is again something that I think, because as a director, I've directed quite a lot of new writing over the years. So, and I think the main thing with when you write something is you can't be precious about it. You have to kill your babies. If something's not working, you have to be able to go, that's not working. And I think now the more that I've written, and I've not written a lot, I'm still quite new to the game really, is just trust your instincts. And also people's behavior. I've always been fascinated by how people behave. And I think I've subconsciously that's always been, situations. I've always been really watching people, not like a stalker, but do you know what I mean? Like how people react with each other and interact with each other.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I wanted to just go back to what you said. So you said that you really liked the process. Not the process. You really loved when you wrote that play, right? The first play. What was it that you loved? Was it like the putting it together? Was it the actual writing? Was it seeing the end product? What was it that you just loved?
I think it was a mixture of all of it. I think I loved seeing it come to life. I mean, I didn't direct it. I got a friend of mine to direct it because I just thought I can't, direct it. I need someone else to do it. And it was a guy called Guy Ritalik, and he did a brilliant job on it. Absolutely superb job. Yeah, it's just quite, it's so weird because once I start writing, like, I think every people who write plays, they all have different ways of how they write. I will have an idea and it will simmer here, and it'll simmer, and then all of a sudden I'll go, I know what I'm doing, I need to write it, and then I will write it. And it is one of those cliche things where I'll be in bed and I'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'll be like, that's the line. And then I'll get up and then I'll write it down and then I'll go back to bed.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm not that creative because I normally don't have this. But I will say, so that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you about, this like kind of universal downloads. I had this idea that everyone gets like universal downloads. I know it sounds crazy, but like because sometimes, like, how like sometimes you get an idea, even like an invention, like something, you're like, that's really good, and then you don't do anything, and then like 2 years later you see it, you're like, I thought it. So like I feel like everyone gets different universal downloads. Sometimes people get similar, and therefore, so my question to you is like, when you're saying you get this idea and it's simmering, like, do you think it's a universal download, or is it something you're kind of just like, I don't know, like, or you just like brainstorm ideas? Like, how does that idea conception come about for you?
I have no idea. And that's the thing. I think it's an instinct I think a lot of stuff I write is really character driven. I think it's the characters that then create the story. I mean, I'll know as I'm writing it, I'll go, what if they were in love with them, or what if they had a massive secret? And it's where you plant the seeds within the storytelling. And I really like, especially with Deeper and Deeper, because obviously Act 1 was all in order and then Act 2 was all out of sync. So you learn quite a lot about the secrets and the lies between them and how it jumped. And and it's always the same with any piece of theatre. Act 1 is always the setup. Act 1 is all about the setup of the relationships between the characters. the tensions really, and then Act Two is where especially in deep and well the end of Act One it all fell apart, but it's that really interesting thing of when you see them 5 years later, what have they learned? Have they changed? Have they developed? Have they learned from those experiences? Um, which is life, you know. Yeah, so I do quite like um, time jumping, I suppose. But then also I've written stuff that is not a time jump, which is, I wrote this lovely play called Confessions Over Toys, which is based in a toy shop, which was inspired by my friend Jane, who runs a charity called the Toy Project. And her toy shop is amazing. It's got like Cindy dolls in sweet jars and Smurfs in sweet jars, and it's basically people who don't want their toys anymore. They take them to the Toy Project, and Jane takes them to hospitals. She takes them to families that don't have a lot of money. And I was doing some storytelling, panto dame storytelling in her shop, and I was just looking at all these toys, and I just went, "Oh my God, I just want to write about a young girl who works in this toy shop, and the people that come into the toy shop, these characters that come in." And there was an autistic kid in it. There's an old man in it. There's a grandma visiting her family down from York, um, and there's some little twists and turns in it. And basically, you discover that the girl used to be a boy. The dad who's in the play doesn't recognise them because they're now a girl. He comes into the shop, and then the result at the end is they're all dead, and the toy shop is a waiting area where for their
Wow.
souls to be. And I've just told the end of the play, but that's the end
Goosebumps.
of the play.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, chills. Oh.
so
Wow.
all their connections, and because it's near a local hospital as well, which is so they're all there looking to tie their stories together.
Wow. Wow. Okay, no, because getting to that point, and that's so interesting. So, did you know from the get go, or as you're writing, then you're like, and that's the end? Like,
And as I
how?
Yeah, it was because originally it was about the 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 girl in the shop being reunited with her dad who left when they were young. So that
Okay.
was always going to be the end. And then I just went, what happens if they're all dead? And it's just like, and it just made it, and like the ending. I mean, I've not managed to get it staged yet, but I could see the ending, like how the walls would just move and everything would go right. Do you know what I
Incredible.
mean? So it would just become into a
Yes.
white space where they would hold hands and walk to the back of the stage. That's what I want the ending to be.
Yes. Oh my God, that's so good. I hope you get it staged. I really do. I will
Yeah,
be one of the first people to buy a ticket. So,
yeah,
no, that's really cool. So fascinating. I mean, because again, this is not. I'm so foreign to this. And so, is it like do you have a lot of friends who are? You do have a lot of friends in the industry, but do you have a lot of friends that are playwrights? Do you guys talk about different
yeah.
approaches?
A couple of friends. I mean, I'm probably because now I'm writing more. I'm now getting to know more playwrights.
Hmm.
One just messaged me now actually and said he's got an idea that he would like to work with. He wants me to work with him on it, which is really
Right.
nice.
Yeah.
Um, so
Well, and how does
it's really
that work?
interesting.
Like, how do if you're going to have collaborations, like, do you want to make sure that you guys have a very similar sort of like
Yeah,
approach? Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I've just wrote my first panto, dirty adult panto called Puss in Boots, which is going to be at Wonderville this Christmas. And I do this mad show about the Eurovision Song Contest that I've done for 3 years, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And one of my besties in it is Lucy Penrose, and I was asked to write this panto, and I was like, I've never written a panto in my life. I've directed lots of adult pantos, and tweaked them and made them, put the sparkle on it. And I was like, oh, and I thought, oh, I'm going to ask Lucy to write it with me. And the main thing when you have something like that and you've got producers to respond to is to have a deadline. So we knew beginning of June we had to have our first draft for a read through so the producers could hear it. And then we had time to change it if they didn't like it. But the great thing that I really liked working with Lucy is we hit all our deadlines. And on our first script meeting, idea meeting, we had the story, we had the plot, and we were both like, I can't believe we've done that so quickly. And we, every time we met, we said, right, what do we want to achieve today? And we achieved everything. So working with someone else, I thought that was really valuable. We were never behind on our deadlines. We had this first draft beginning of June. Then we went away and we tweaked it, and then we didn't look at it for 3 months. And then we did another read through about 2 weeks ago, just between me and her, and we just went through it line by line and said, "Is this funny? Mm, I think there's something funny here, or that's really funny, but that's in the wrong place. We need to move that gag down there." So it's fascinating, that process, and even with Deeper and Deeper, we did a 2 week rehearsal, and we, as a director, when I direct, I like to get things blocked at the end of the first week. Not the detail, but just so everyone can go away from the rehearsal room and go, this is the shape. We've got a shape here. Some sort of, it's not, got no detail in it, but we all know the journey of the piece. So then you can come back in the second week and then you add all the detail and you go, that works. And we did a stagger run of Deeper and Deeper on the Thursday, and I said to the boys, there's a scene missing. We're missing a scene. And they went, what? I said, I'm going to write a scene. And it was only a short scene. I don't know if you remember, it was a scene in the airport where they said goodbye to each other, where one of the characters came and said, and I was like, I got on the tube and I wrote it from like Southwark to Baker Street because it was only a short scene, but I knew exactly what I wanted them to say. And then I took it in the next day and the boys did it, and it just made total sense for them. It just really completed their character arc. And the scene afterwards, Stuart, who played Paul, when we ran it, it gave him something else that he didn't have, that he never thought about in that scene, that he was able to bring from having that scene before that wasn't there. Give him another layer of, emotion.
That's, yeah, incredible. I mean,
Totally
again,
changes
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
interpretation.
I guess that is why you are the director and you're the writer, is that you can see the whole thing and step away and say, oh, something's missing. That's quite fascinating, actually.
And then
Do you
even
ever,
in the last
yeah.
week, I went in and there was a scene 2 in Act 1. I watched it the weekend before and I went, I don't like this scene. I don't like all of this scene. I've said that. Why am I saying that again? So I said to the boys, I said, I know we've only got 6 performances left next week, but I really want to make some cuts to scene 2 in Act 1. Would you all be happy with it, first of all, because you've been on for 3 weeks, you're in your groove? And they all said, great, do what you need to
Wow.
do. So they went in. So we went on the Tuesday. We rehearsed for like half an hour. They ran the scene with the cuts, and it worked so much better. And I gone, oh my god, I wish I'd done that before. But at that time, I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
My brain was focused on getting the play open and other things. So,
Wow.
and next time, I think Deeper and Deeper will come back.
Yes.
But next time, I'm not going to direct it. I
No?
feel like now because it's a new piece of work, I feel now like I can go, there we
To
go, see
someone
what you
else.
do with it. Yeah.
Wow. Fascinating. And when can you, sorry, again, I know I appreciate director versus producer. When you mentioned producers and you and Lucy trying to make sure that you had
Yeah.
everything to a proper state before you met the producers. Are the producers like the funding people,
Yeah,
or
they're
are
the
they?
money. They're the
They're the money.
money.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. And and who does like the sort of lining up the producers, or are you guys talking to other people to do that? Like, or are
Uh,
you guys doing that? Are you guys like using your resources and your network to
the
get that?
the producers will tend to find the talent, as they call it. So they call,
Ah, okay.
in the industry, they call, creatives and actors talent. So the
Okay.
producers will line up who they want to direct the play. They'll probably decide what they want to put on. So
Wow.
the producers will go, we want to do My Fair Lady, whatever,
Yes.
do you know what I mean? We want to do Cats, we
Yeah.
want to do Hamlet. And then they'll
Right.
line up their team of the director. And then sometimes what then tends to happen is the director will probably sometimes have a team that they always work with. So they could say to the
Mm.
producer, I've got a lighting designer and a costume designer that I want to use. And they'll go,
Mm.
fine, you know.
Interesting. But what if someone's like a budding writer and they have an idea and they've written like a manuscript? They have to find a producer, right? Or
Yeah.
someone who's going to
Or
fund
they
it.
could produce it themselves, yeah.
Or they can produce it themselves. Okay, gotcha. Interesting. Okay, so it's just
And
like
it and it's
my
and
own
it's such a
knowledge.
yeah, it's such a minefield because um, obviously theatres that are set up, they will program a season of plays or musicals or comedies. So they'll plan what they want to do. Like the National Theatre, for example, they will program plays and new plays or revivals.
Hmm.
But when it's not a big organisation like that, and it's a producer hiring a theatre, like the
Hmm.
Union Theatre where we did Deeper and Deeper, or Southwark Playhouse, or you know Riverside Studios, they will book the space for however many weeks, 5 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they'll fund it. They'll find the money, and sometimes the producers have money themselves, but sometimes they will go to people with lots of money who will
Yeah,
give them
yeah.
money, who are angels. So it's a, and I'm very lucky now, and I don't know
Yeah.
how it's happened, but I have three different sets of investors who now give me money to do shows,
Oh my gosh, that's
which is
amazing.
amazing. It's amazing.
That's really good. So when you call them angels, do you mean angel investors or literally like they're just like good people? Like just like you love them
Uh,
and they're
a,
angels.
a bit of both, really. A bit of both, yeah. A bit of
Okay.
both. So they'll
Love
go.
it.
So
That's
they'll go.
awesome.
I'll say I need 45,000 to do this play, whatever, and they'll
Yeah.
go, okay.
That's amazing.
It's hard. Sometimes you have to get bits from different people, but I feel very lucky that I'm really supported now, which is amazing. Which is something that you know is like a dream to have that
Of
that
course.
facility and that opportunity more than anything.
Amazing. Um, when you get stuck with writer's block, if ever, how do you get out of that?
Walk away.
You walk away. For like
It'll
a
come.
short period of time? Like an hour or like even like days?
Days. It'll. I mean, the thing is, I don't really. When I get my idea to write something, I have to do it. I have to do it. So when I was working in the States in the summer, I was doing Sister Mary was doing the Ice Palace on Fire Island, and we did the show, and I had some mates in from Manhattan, and we all were drinking in the bar afterwards, and we got talking to this guy, and anyway, resulted in later on, he was like, "Oh, where are you from?" And I went, "Oh," he said, "When did you move to London?" I went, "1992." He said, "Oh, I moved to London in 1992. Whereabouts are you from?" I said, "The northeast of England." He said, "I'm from the northeast of England. Whereabouts?" I said, "I'm a place called Gisborne." And he went, "No way, I'm from Middlesbrough, which is 7 miles away." And then we got chatting, and then we discovered that I came out when I was 15. He was 2 years older than me. And he said, "Did you go on the gay scene in Middlesbrough?" I said, "Well, yes, I did actually, because my mum, my mum and my stepfather used to drop me off at the gay bar, and then they went to the Salvation Army." So then we just got talking about like all these gays that I was like, "Do you remember Keith, the hairdresser, and his friend Keith, the other hairdresser, and Paul, who worked in Boots that my mum used to call Puffin Boots?" And we was like, "Yeah, yeah, I remember them." And then he said to me, did you go out with anybody there?" I said, "Well, when I was at college, I actually was really good friends with this guy, and then New Year's Eve 1991, we decided to get together." And he said, "What was his name?" And I told him his name, and he went, "Oh my God, I went out with him." I went, "What? When did you go out with him?" He went, "I went out with him from like July 1991 to September 1992. We discovered we were both dating him at the same time." But the flip side of that, in all the places, we were in Fire Island in America, and we discovered this. So it's nuts, isn't it? And I was like, "Oh my God." Anyway, I went back to Manhattan, and Andrew messaged me on the Sunday, said, I'm coming down. And I was like, "Do you want to meet for brunch?" He went, "Absolutely." And I said to him, "Okay, so I've not been inspired to write anything, but I really want to write a play about this. Would you be happy with this?" And he went, "Oh my God, I love it. I love it. I love it." So, so it was like there in my head, fizzing around. And then on the Monday, I got a message from a friend of mine who runs a theatre saying, "Tim, we're doing a new writing festival. I don't suppose you've got anything that you want to try out." I went, "When is it?" He said, "3 weeks' time." And I was like, I need to get back to you. And then I discussed it with some of my New York mates, and they were like, Tim, you've got to do this. You've got an idea. You've been given a theatre for a week. Write it. And amazing, luckily, I was having an operation on my leg when I got back to London, so I couldn't do anything for a week. So I wrote it. And we did it as a work in progress for 5 performances. I went in, changed a lot of it, rewrote bits. The Sunday night, one of my investors came to see it, and they loved it. And they said, let's think about putting this on. And then the last night of Deeper and Deeper, they said to me, let's definitely do that. We are going to give you the money to do this next September. And I think I mean, people say write about what you know sometimes, but this play I think is the most. I mean, obviously I've made it a bit more dramatic, and not everything in the play is true. Some of it is true. I'm going to leave the audience to guess which bits are true, but it's it's very it's much more closer to me than anything I've written. But again, there is that fantasy element of it as well to make it theatre, to make it a bit more interesting and dramatic.
Amazing. Do we know what theater that's coming? Are we allowed to say what theater?
I can't yet, but it'll be next September.
Amazing. All right. Well, we'll keep the listeners up to date for sure.
Amazing thing. You could not write. I mean, you couldn't write that. 2 gay men in a small island discovered that they both dated the love of both their lives when they were 17.
I mean, yeah. But you know what's ironic about that? I actually have friends who also have discovered that sort of overlaps, and like not in the same crazy way, but there have been overlaps. So I think it'll resonate. And just, is it going to be more of a comedy, or is it going to be a little more of a drama?
I think it's a bit. I mean, it has got funny bits in it, I think. But yeah, it'll be interesting, to see what happens.
I'm excited. Tim.
You said about the writer's block thing, and I didn't know what to call it. I could not think. I was like, fire. It was on Fire Island. So I was like going through all these titles about island love, lost island love, or love on an island, or all these like random things I could just. And I texted Andrew and I went, I don't know what to call this fucking play, and he just replied with Small Town Boys. And I went,
perfect. So cute. That's perfect.
I was like, Andrew, thank you very much for that. Great, I'll give you some.
Love it.
And he came to see it. He came to see the reading.
Oh my gosh, cool.
And he's been telling everybody, all his mates, about it, and like, there's going to be a play on about me. And
I love it. Obviously, he'll be there for the premiere, I'm sure, right?
He will be.
Yeah, amazing.
I mean, the great thing about
okay, Tim, the
great thing about
so go ahead. So no, tell me.
The great thing about it is we become mates now, which is just bonkers.
That is crazy. I mean, and good friends, obviously, as well, right? Okay, so I have one more question before we move on to the final segment of the Envisionaire podcast. And that is, what one key advice would you give a fellow creative who is listening, who, let's say they're struggling to enter or reach a level of success, either obviously to where you are or whatever their level of success is? What sort of advice would you give them?
Hold your nerve, and keep fighting, keep knocking on those doors, because it's just you never know when something will happen. And I think you have to be open, and just try everything. So I mean, that's what I've done. I mean, just say yes if someone gives you something. It might not be the best thing, but you.
When you say open, like, do you mean like energetically, or are you talking about just being like?
I think so, and don't be. It's so hard. It is so hard, but try not to be scared about it. And the reject. I think the main thing is, the business is so hard. It's full of rejection. And that you just have to, try not to let that rejection destroy you, but know that at some point something will give. As we mentioned earlier, we all are unique. We all have something different to give to someone. So remember that. I just think remember that, and I understand that. I've been there in a supermarket with like 52p in my hand, going, should I buy a potato or should I buy Inside Soap, the magazine? And I bought Inside Soap, the magazine, to read about the soap. Do you know what I mean? So I have, I've had, it's been hard times, and it's at the minute, I feel very lucky. I've got so much work on, but it could all go. Next year, it could all go. At the minute, I'm riding the wave and I'm just on that wave, and that wave might suddenly stop. And that's fine. You know, we all have good times, we all have bad times, and you just have to hold your nerve.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Thanks, Tim. Beautiful. Well, we are at the final segment of the Envisioneer podcast. Yee. So this is it's a fun feature of the podcast where we ask guests to reflect on their past, present, and future. And so one of the questions we have regarding your past is if you could give your 15-year-old self, so you have just come out, I think, at the time you said 15 years old, what advice would you give them and why?
I would probably say be patient, and just don't be so hard on yourself. Trust it. There's a great song written by an American composer called David Freeman, and it's called "Trust the Wind." And the opening lyric is, "There's a voice inside me whispering in my head, telling me I'm going to be all right. It keeps saying to yourself, let you be led. Don't worry, don't put up a fight." It says, trust the wind, breathe the air. And it's just I think it's being present as well. I'd say be present in the moment.
Yeah, love that. Well, I do definitely, I'm going to have to listen to that song. But I also feel like I love the trust yourself, be patient, and be present.
I think it's really important as well within and you mentioned earlier about the podcast being about, well-being. And I think that's something that is really hard to do in the industry, is to look after yourself mentally, because it's so hard and it's so cutthroat, that you have to be kind to yourself, you know. And it sort of ties in with what we were saying earlier about, don't compare yourself to someone, or don't try not to get angry or jealous if someone else gets something. And especially now with social medias, they're always about announcing cast in shows. And, so I think I can imagine it's probably feels much harder nowadays than it was when I first got in the business, because of the social media aspect of it, and because of them announcing things all the time, and people going, look at me, what I'm doing, yeah. So I just think, yeah, just be kind to yourself more than anything.
I love that. That's good advice. 15,
Any
50,
any age,
80.
yeah.
Like, just be kind to
Just
yourself.
give yourself a hug
Yeah.
sometimes, and just think it's
Yeah.
going to be fine,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know.
yeah. Absolutely. Do you cultivate a practice of like self-care and so
Yeah,
on?
I mean, I've had some sort of, I was diagnosed with health anxiety a couple of years ago, which is, I don't know if you know, but I lost my dad when I was 9, and
Oh,
it's just
sorry.
one of those really strange things that I didn't really know how I behaved. And then my mum died and my stepfather died in 2016, quite close together. And then my sort of
I'm
anxiety
sorry.
went through the roof. So health anxiety is like, if you've got a headache, you think it's a brain tumor. If your toenail is hurting, you think you've got
Okay.
cancer of the toe. And then you go online and then you Google the symptoms. Um, and my partner just said to me, like you
Mm.
said, you need to talk to someone because it's just really escalated. I mean, I over the years I've had so many tests and had everything, examined, and everything's been
Mm-hmm.
fine, touch wood. And since
Yeah.
and that is, having any sort of anxiety really within the industry and within life is really hard to function on a day-to-day basis. But now
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've it's that thing, isn't it? I think I own it now. Before I used to fight it. I
Mm-hmm.
own it now. And even now when I have my days where I'm feeling, a little bit anxious, I can say, right, it's fine. I'm anxious today. Hello, welcome. We're going to have a nice time together. Do you know what I mean? Instead of going, go
Yeah.
away. You know, you just have to own it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Isn't there this like, well, I like, so my father passed away a couple of years ago as well. And yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, it's part of life, but like, and nothing can prepare you for it. And I appreciate that, you know, you lost your dad, you were very young. And then obviously then you lost, you know, your mom and your stepfather. So as an adult, as more of an adult, right? And so like, that's different experiences, but the trauma, I think, is something that like, and everyone experiences it differently, and it could be like late onset. So there's so many different factors, but I found that like, because my husband and I, we got married in December 2020. My father passed away in January 2021. And so it was like 3 weeks, like after 2 to 3 weeks after it was, but like, I realized that I was like, I had so much like, and I'm not an angry person, I'm not like a real, but I was like so angry and everything. And anyway, I had to go to like bereavement counseling, and wow, that was like game changing, because I'd done therapy in my 20s, and you know, it's like, yeah, I love therapy, it's great, but like talking about the bereavement aspect, oh, so different. I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I really recommend for anyone who's suffering, because it's
And
different.
I
That
find
sort
it
of,
quite fascinating how we don't really like to talk about death. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like we talk
yeah,
about when babies are born and how marvelous it is, but we don't really. It's still. It feels like a bit of a taboo subject still when someone
yeah,
dies. You know, when the grief. And actually, it's yes, it is the initial shock if they die suddenly, and it's the impact and that moment. But actually, what I've learned over the years is 6 months later. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
That's when the because everyone gathers around people, and then slowly it all just sort of people just drift away, and then you're just there, and then you just have to deal with it, and it's and it's still there. It never goes away, but you just
yeah,
adapt. You just deal with it differently, and I think I don't know if it's a British thing that we just don't really talk about it, but
mm,
I talk about it. I think it's
good.
important to talk about it.
That's
And
really
you know,
good.
since I lost my mum in 2016, sadly, lots of my mates have lost their mums or dads. So we have a little group called the Dead Mums group, and we just all check
Oh,
in with each other. You know, like, and you can't be in the group unless your mum's dead, which is a really horrible thing to say. Do you know what I mean? But it's just like, and it's just being there for
yeah. Well,
somebody, and even
it's different.
like just sending them a little message, going, just checking in, how you doing? You know, and
Yeah,
that's it's looking after each other.
totally. And we're all in this
Absolutely.
together, right? I and it's like, I feel like nobody really, people can sympathize, but to empathize is a
Yeah.
different thing, right? Like, you can sympathize and say, I'm so sorry, like, about, you know, XYZ, but to actually have experienced it, and just that level of like knowing that, like, on their
Yeah,
birthday
yeah,
or the first
yeah.
Christmas, and that sort of stuff, where, you know, anyway, it's fascinating. That's maybe a
Yeah.
conversation for another time, but yeah, no, I love, thank you
No,
for
but
sharing
it's
that. That was
it's
really,
important
really
because
nice.
we all have our stuff to deal with, and it's how you deal with that when you're
Mm-hmm.
in the industry as well, or you know in the profession. It's all those little things how you because acting and directing is you have to talk about stuff. Whatever the play is about, you
Yeah,
have to talk about those issues within the play, which can be triggering for
yeah,
people. And it's that thing where you can never like when you play a part, you cannot. People say you should go on your own experiences, but you shouldn't really go on your own experiences. You should go on the sensation and the
mm-hmm.
feeling of the experiences, but detach it away from your experience because that will really mess with your head. Which comes back to mental health and well-being and looking after yourself within the industry as well.
Right, absolutely, 100%. Gosh, well, that was really meaty. I mean, I hope that people who get to this part of the podcast, really, you're in for it. This is a treat, like, to get that sort of, that was really, really interesting. And I agree 100%. Like, mental health is such a huge part of it, of well-being. It's physical, it's mental, and it's also spiritual, and that's what we try and focus on here. And what's interesting, just so I'm just gonna, a little aside, but I had a guest on who was talking about breath work, and she's a breath work facilitator, and she actually shared that her brother passed away very suddenly about 10 years ago, and the trauma that she kind of just held. And then it wasn't until she actually experienced breath work, because she was at a yoga retreat, and the release of it all. And again, so it's like people, I think, have to find their holistic maybe way of dealing, which might not be the same for some. It's breath work, for some it's energy chakras, for others it's meditation, and then sometimes it's just like friends, like community. And so I think it's really just trying to find whatever it is.
The other sort of thing I really learned, which was really interesting, that I think when I, like, my stepfather died end of 2014 and mum April 2016, I realised that all my life, and being in the entertainment industry, I was doing it to make them proud. I wanted them to be proud of me, and they weren't there anymore. And so for a while, I fell out of love with the industry and what I was doing, and I just couldn't be bothered. Just could not be bothered. But now I've learned to love it again, and not being selfish, but it's for me. I'm doing it for me now, which was a massive learning curve.
Wow. Yeah.
And not in an arrogant or selfish
Maybe
way,
it's-
but it was just like,
No.
I'm doing it for me now. No one else. It's me. I love it. There's nothing else I can do. I'm crap at everything else. Every other job I've been sacked from. Do you know what I mean? Bar work, sacked. Selling vibrating cushions in Selfridges, sacked. You know.
What? Wait, they weren't sexual.
No,
Just
massage cushions. Yeah, I used to have all these old ladies vibrating away. You know.
Oh gosh. Tim. Yeah, absolutely. No, that must have been really freeing for you to get to that point where you're doing something for yourself. Absolutely, 100%. I feel like that's probably what this podcast is, because for me, like, my journey, we didn't talk about, but I think, like, I used to work in politics and law, and and now this is truly where yeah. And this is like where I feel so alive, and I love connecting with people, and I love hearing their stories, and it's like breathing, and it's so beautiful.
But
so
as you said,
I'm so
as
happy.
you said, you connect with it, it makes you happy. And, we only get one chance on this planet to live our lives. So I think just if you can do what you want to do, live your life. And I'm sure we all see people on the tubes, and I think, God, you look absolutely miserable. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it'd be interesting to know how many people actually are happy in the work that they do. And I think that's the great thing about the entertainment industry, because it is when it's fun, it's really, really good fun. And when it's crap, it's really
awesome.
crap. But generally, I always try and create a happy ship. If you have fun, if you go in with a nice positive energy, fun energy, and you're not horrible, and as an actor, I've worked with directors who you just think, I'm really scared of you. I'm really scared of you. And I think, why, as a director, why would you want your actors to feel scared or not feel safe in the rehearsal room? Because that is the most important place.
Yeah.
It's got to be safe. It's got to be fun. And if everyone's relaxed, you're going to get the best out of people. Not them thinking, I don't know, I feel really tense about this. Why is he being so horrible? Why are they being so horrible? No, create a nice, fun atmosphere, and you'll get the best out of people.
Amazing. I love that.
Sorry.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Right. Well, I know. Okay, well, let's get back the Envisionaire. We're going back to the Envisionaire questionnaire. So, reflecting on your present, if you could seek advice from anyone in the world right now, who would it be and why?
I think Miriam Margleaves would be quite a good person to ask advice from, because she's quite honest. Do you know what I mean?
So you just want the honesty, the rawness.
That's it. I just want the honesty now. I can't. I'm to the point where I just can't bear all the pussyfooting around. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, can you give me the money? No, fine, that's fine. Just tell me, I'll go somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
right.
Honesty,
Yeah.
I think, is really important. I think a lot of people sometimes are not necessarily that honest, especially in our industry, where I try and be, honest as I can be. And sometimes there's horrible things you have to talk to people about, or you know, but
Mm-hmm.
just be honest and
Yeah, a little real
treat people
talk.
how you want to be treated. That's all I have to say.
Exactly. You can be real and you can be honest, but just do it in a
Yeah,
kind way,
and
right?
it's that thing as well. I
Yeah.
think before, I always used to ask my mum about advice. And she'd be like, sometimes like, "Oh, tell him to stuff it." Do you know what I mean? And I went, "Well, I can't do that, mum."
I like
Yeah,
that attitude though. Just
I
tell them
know,
to
I remember,
stop it.
and she would in that situation. She probably would, but yeah,
Yeah. It's funny. Look, my mom is very much like that. She's like a lover. She's feisty and she's like from the Caribbean. So it's a real talk. That's real talk. But she always says, "Oh, Nicole, well, you have a nicer way of putting it. You're just a little more diplomatic than me." But I'm like, well, that's just my voice. You know what I'm like? It's truly like I don't like to cause offense, and so sometimes, yeah. Anyway, okay. Future looking. What's one goal you want to achieve in the next 5 years that you would like to share with us?
it was funny because I was having a similar conversation with my brother about Christmas. Oh God, Christmas, and we were saying about like, what do you want for Christmas? And I was like, you know what? I don't want anything. And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I don't want anything. You don't have to buy me anything." He said, "You've got to have." I said, "No, no, no." I said, "I'm fine." I said, "Look," I said, "I've got everything I need. I don't need anything really. Let's just be together. Let's just see each other and go away for a weekend." And that's what we're doing for Christmas.
Oh, that's so nice. Where are you guys
We're
going?
going to, where are we going? We're going to Tunbridge, not Tunbridge Wells, Henley on Thames. We're going to. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Do you know what I
nice.
mean?
You gonna do a
No,
little rowing?
absolutely not. Going in.
A
Yeah,
little
yeah.
spa day,
Maybe a spa day.
maybe?
It's funny, isn't it? Because I've
Yeah.
never like, all I wanted to do when I left drama school was to be respected and to work and to do what I love to do. I didn't want to be famous. Like other people I was at college with, they were like, "I want to be
Mm,
famous," and I was like, "I just want to work and be respected for what I do," and that's what I've always wanted. And you
mm.
know, who knows? In 5 years' time, I might be. I have a little dream as well that one day I'll just give it all up and I'll just run a little bar in Spain.
Amazing. Which part of
Southern
Spain
Spain,
are we talking
southern
like?
Spain. It's warmer. Yeah, I
Nice.
can see me doing that. I'll just
Yeah.
go right. I'm done now, and everyone's going, "You'll never get
That's
up," and I'm
cool
like,
though.
you know, I think there'll come a time where I'll just be
Maybe.
like,
Maybe.
maybe I could just be warmer weather. You know,
Yeah. Well, I'll come
yeah,
visit you.
absolutely, absolutely.
I'll come visit you. Right. Well, thank you so much, Tim, honestly, for your generosity and your time. I'm so grateful. And this was so amazing.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute joy talking to you, and I think next time we should do it over a bottle of wine, but in person.
In person, yes, 100%. I love that. We're going to rent a studio in London and I'll get the wine and
We'll just go for a
everything, and you
drink.
just
Let's go
come
for a
with
drink.
your fabulous self. Yeah,
Yeah.
love that. All right. Well, for anyone listening who would like to connect with Tim, he's so happy. Follow him on Instagram. His handle is at McArthur, McArthur .Tim, TIM. So at McArthur.Tim. And he'd love to connect on Instagram, and do follow him on there. And I'll put everything in the show notes. And we just want to thank you again, Tim. And we're sending you so much love. And I hope you have an amazing time in Paris and in your pantomimes. Love it. I can't wait to hear all about it. And we'll see you very soon. Thank you so much, Tim. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit subscribe and check out this video here.